You want to tell us who you are first of all?
Okay, let's start over again. I'm Steve Churchyll. I'm an interpreter at Hobbs State Park. Steve asked me if I talk about our plot of Chinquapins there. Well, it's hard just to jump in and talk about the plot without giving you some background. How did we get to the plot? And Al started it. He said that some years ago, he just told me, reminded me, it was 2002. He found this fruiting Ozark Chinquapin. That got us going. And for the first few years, and that tree produced quite a few nuts. Now, the first few years, Al and I just took those nuts and we gave them to Steve. We didn't know what to do with them. We're just starting to learn. And after a few years of doing that, Steve said, well, how would you like to try some cross-pollination? We didn't know what we were doing. We said, sure. Yeah, we'll give that a try. So he gave us some great pollen from Mississippi, Texas, Missouri, and Arkansas. So we had to get some bags. Well, first of all, we got some bags, and this is how we did it, you know. Make sure we already got that pollen on there. Whoops, gotta go back. Ooh. Who's playing with my program here? All right. Slideshow.
Moved the cord back here, but it didn't do anything to that.
The current slide, here we go. So we did this with each pollen. Of course, we made sure we cleaned that glass, you know, so we weren't doing the wrong thing there. Then we got ourselves some bags, and you have to know that this was a staged picture. You can tell that by the state of the catkins here, but we wanted to get this picture for the process. So the bags. The bags were the key. Bags were the key. And we did everything right. You know, we took the leaves off the end, and we bagged, we put on the color coating, and we said, well, let's see what's going to happen. And our tree looked like this. And this is right next to Highway 12. And I know that sometimes when people see this, they want to know what it is, and sometimes they start messing with it. Nobody messed with it. It was actually, although it was right next to Highway 12, it was kind of hard to get to. But, as you can see, there's a hill right here. The tree was down there. And I was able to back right up in there, stand in the back of my pickup. Didn't even need a ladder. So, there were about 50 bags, I think, we ended up putting on there. And look at that. Big, big burrs. And why were we successful? Because we had no idea what we were doing. The reason we were successful is because we had lousy bags. These weren't plastic, they weren't wax. We had a special event called Living Forest, where we have adults dress up like animals, and then we have the public walk around trail, and we talk about, the animals talk about themselves. And then in those bags, we had sand and candles, and we lit this for the night. So I had these bags. So I used those bags. Now, if you put something at the end of a tree, on the end of a branch, there's a tendency to collect moisture, right? And if that moisture can't get away, everything in that bag is going to rot. Well, these were paper bags, so paper would get wet and then it would start to evaporate. And then, when all chance of local pollination passed us by, the seams of the bag broke. Perfect. Aired it out. We got 32 viable seeds. We were lucky. So that was our experiment with cross-pollination. They were good seeds. They were big seeds. So now the plot. Well, we gave a bunch of seed to Steve. We tried the cross-pollination. We learned more about the tree, so it was time to try the plot. So where do you want to put the plot? Of course, it's got to be the place that's well-drained, south-facing, full sun, all that. So, we found a spot. This is a ridge that goes back here, south-facing, and all that was here was scrub growth. We didn't even have to take down any large trees. This is the other side. And so we got some help from our friends at Forestry. They brought their dozer in and they cleaned up all that scrub growth, which was great. And it all looked great after it was planted, as you'll see, but of course we weren't thinking of all those nice weed seeds and other seeds that were being turned up there, and we ended up with a jungle. Oops. Well, who was going to help us with that planting? Well, we leaned on Northwest Arkansas Community College students. So we had some students come over. Mr. Al ramrodded the planting, and they got very good instructions. And you look at the dirt, that looks different from our dirt here. No, it's the same dirt. Here's what we did. If you damage that taproot, as you all know, you might as well not plant the tree. It's a goner. So we didn't want any of these sharp rocks here to damage those roots when we planted the seeds. So we sifted all of this, sifted out the rocks. And then we added 20% sand, so that would perk when we watered it. And that's how we did this first planting. Those students, it was kind of funny. Those students really did a great job. We had two master gardeners from Benton County kind of help us oversee the planting so that they did the right thing. And that's how it ended up. You can see that wide open. And it happened, just so happened that these students were from 6 different countries. Kind of cool. That was the first planting. Well, we had a pretty good mortality rate, our first plants. We had to have a second plant. We need more volunteers. This was great. We contacted the environmental club from the Rogers High School. They decided they wanted to help us. Not for a day, not for a week, not for a month, not for a semester, not for a year, but until the trees were older. So you're going to have a new president every year. We got the same sponsor. They're going to stay with it. Again, Mr. Al gave them some great instruction. We made sure they knew what they were supposed to be doing. Make sure you plant that seed right, Mr. Al said. Lowe's gave us buckets. We got mulch from Carroll Electric. And each one of those trees got a 10-gallon bucket of mulch. Now we did something wrong, we found out. We shouldn't have used weed barrier. That later came to bite us. So we put weed barrier down and the mulch on top of the weed barrier. But then that mulch starts to decompose. The little critters get in there and start chewing on the weed barrier. Weed barrier is exposed, gets hot from the sun, and draws heat. So we have removed all of the weed barrier. What these students do is they come out every month, once a month. Doesn't matter if it's the summertime, doesn't matter if it's the winter time. They come out once a month. And during the growing season, they measure the growth. They take notes on the trees. Are there bugs? Did we just spray them? Did we need to water them? So we have a history on these trees. It's great. And the sponsor is always there working harder than anybody else. Hello. So even in the wintertime, when we know we can't measure the growth, they're still coming back and refreshing the ID for the seed. So, that gets faded in the sun. Steve was telling us some time back that he had trouble with one of his plots with bear. Bear was coming in and knocking down these things. But we didn't have trouble with bears. We had trouble with cows. Where this plot is, there's a field past the plot, and then there's War Eagle Creek. Across War Eagle Creek, cattle. The man didn't keep good track of his fence. Part of the fence came down. War Eagle Creek was low. Cows would come across. So we had problems with cows. And of course, if you're going to plant the plot, you've got to have some maintenance. Well, bugs are chewing on it. We got to spray them. Got a little dry. Got to water them. Put a gallon of water on each one when we do that. Make sure that we're keeping the proper notes and these are labeled properly in the right location. Volunteers would come And as you can see, that growth from exposing all that seed that's getting pretty heavy. So we ended up making just roads for a while where you could get to the trees. And why do we have to have grow tubes? There's a good reason right there. And again, our friends at forestry, we do prescribed burns. They got in there with their dozer and plowed a line all the way around the plot to protect it. Again, the students from the environmental club from Rogers High School, they got in with maintenance. The sponsor brought his own saw, cut trees. They moved limbs. They they rolled these things out of the way. They've been putting in some good work. Oops, darn, what's happening here? So it is becoming a jungle, as you can see. Some of those weeds were higher than some of our trees, which we didn't want. They still come out measured. Got to be a jungle. But then we got the okay from my boss, and we got our brush hog up in here, and some other weed eating, and this whole area was cleaned out. So there was nothing there. I mean, it was just all totally cleaned out. Now this is one of the things that the students have done. You know, sometimes when you're on the internet and you copy something and you paste it, it doesn't come out exactly as it's supposed to. This did not, but you get the idea. These are the rows, row A, A1, A2, A3, and so forth, over that point. So, what we can do is on the computer, we just go to any one of these, click on it, and it's going to bring up the tree, where it came from, the resistance, all the maintenance that's been done on it. So we have a record of each one of our trees. Now, see what's on his shirt? Talk nerdy to me. We got a nerd. And what is a nerd? A nerd is somebody who's got an IQ that's higher than most of us weigh. This guy is really smart. It is totally illegal to fly a drone in an Arkansas State Park. However, you can get a special permit from the director of Arkansas State Park. So we jumped through those hoops, and we got the permit. He came out, and he flew that drone over the plot. And this is just a little step up. It's just repetition. Whoops. But what we're going to do with his picture is using some different software. We can see the trees, and we can click on the individual trees in this picture and get the same information that I was just talking about. A few days ago, Al and I were down here, and these last three slides are what the plot looks like today. We got some weeds there, but that's not bad. We've got a couple of trees like this. These have totally sloughed off their leaves, but they're not brittle. They still have moisture in there. And those of you who are savvy with trees, we hope that this means they're protecting themselves and they're going to come back. Does it? Maybe?
I'll sooner do that and not come back.
And they may not. Yeah.
About a month ahead of time in the fall.
So we'll see what happens there.
Before they die.
And some of our, you know, all these tubes aren't the same size. Some of them are smaller. And we're starting to get pretty tight up here. So Mr. Al took his knife and he cut the tops there to give some more wiggle room to those trees so that they weren't, the growth tubes weren't digging into the bark. And there's this last slide. We have two trees that were just full of burrs. They were not big burrs, so we're not going to get any viable seed, but I mean, it looked good. At least we're on our way, and we're going to have more trees next year that are going to produce the male catkins. We'll have a lot more pollen, so if we get better pollination, maybe we'll start having viable seed. So we went from, hey look, there's an Ozark Chinquapin to the plot. And that's where we are. So if you have any questions of Al and me about our plot, we'll be glad to try to answer. Yes, sir.
Steve, what program did you have when you had that chart and you were clicking on buttons? What program was that?
I don't know what they've got.
Fair enough.
I didn't do it. They've got this done at the school, and I don't know what that program is. And I don't know what the different program is, where they're gonna connect it with the picture.
Yeah.
They're still working on that.
I think that's fascinating.
That's cool.
That's
real
something we need to
useful.
expand on, I think, and see if Azimuth can, Azimuth, is that something you think that we can make, do for all of them? I wouldn't even mind flying a drone over all these plots and doing the same thing and making like a map like.
Can you fly drones in Missouri State Park?
They're starting to change the regulations on that, but for the most part, our trees aren't in state parks, so it doesn't matter. It's a viewpoint, so we can do that. So if we could do that, and we talked last night about a drone, about maybe using one. And I know down over where you're at with some of the big trees in southwest Missouri, we had a gentleman, unfortunately, died in an auto accident, but he had a state-of-the-art drone, and so Shane's kind of going to be checking into that for us, so. But I wouldn't mind taking some money we've got. I mean, as much as we're expanding, if we had the software for it, I mean, that's great. I think that's awesome.
AG, I'll check into that. We're having now that we've got a new school year coming up, we're gonna have a new president of the environmental club. I need to sit down with that individual and the sponsor and find out more about the software and find out more about just where they're going. What they want to do, we have, our first planting was in 2014. We've got some data, so we can graph growth of trees and whatnot. So,
How about the eagle that attacked the drone?
oh, that was funny. This fella comes with a drone, and he said, one of the things I worry about is hawks and eagles and vultures. And so we're going, what are you talking about? And this is the time of year when the eagles aren't migrating, but we've had like 6 nests built there, so as soon as they build their nests, they don't migrate anymore. So we've got 12 or so eagles that are around. Well, I don't see any eagles. He starts his drone, it goes up about 50 feet, and all of a sudden, here comes this bald eagle, was coming through, saw the drone, heard the drone, made a right angle turn and made a beeline for it. And in order to save his drone, he had to make an emergency landing.
That's the amount of guns